Hey rockers, welcome back to the channel, man, and I'm glad you're here. Tonight I thought of something kind of trippy. It's a memory, more than one, going back to grade school. And I actually went to school with one of Richard Pryor's daughters. For those of you that are comedy buffs like I am, I love comedy. I love comedians. And Richard Pryor, probably my number one favorite comedian of all time. You know, you got Robin Williams, you got George Carlin, you got guys that are kind of wacky like Jonathan Winters, you got, what was his name, Rodney Dangerfield. There's so many of them that I love. Lenny Bruce. But let me tell you, man, Richard Pryor has a special place in my black little heart, man. And we kind of moved from a certain place in Peoria, Illinois, to another place, which was less than savory for me. It was kind of a step into more of a yuppie, rich, snobby attitude direction when we moved to the neighborhood called Rolling Acres back in the 70s, like maybe 78, 77, 78. I don't quite recall, but my parents were divorced and me and my mom and brother relocated out of the apartments we lived in on North University over to Rolling Acres subdivision, right? And when I started going to school at Rolling Acres grade school, of course I wasn't wearing this badass plasmatic shirt then, but I was really shocked because when I lived out there in North Peoria, I went to one of the Dunlap school districts and it was really chill and laid back. But over in the Richwoods High School area, it was a lot more snobby mentality. And if you weren't a jock or fit in with the system, you were just either a loser or a nerd or whatever you were. I don't know what I was, man. I was a kid that took my notebook to school and wrote rock and roll bands all over the front of the notebook and on the back of it, and that's all I do all day instead of listening to that boring drivel. Quite frankly, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't even make my own youngest daughter, Audrey. I wouldn't even make her go to school past 5th grade. I never learned jack in school after about 5th grade. Personally, I didn't have any interest in anything in college or anything like that because I knew I liked one thing, and that was rock and roll. That's why I've spent my life doing stuff like this, you know, being in bands for 43 years, hosting a radio show for 26 years, doing my YouTube channels now, and just creating. I just told my wife earlier, I'm happiest when I can create something like Richard Pryor did. He lived in Peoria, Illinois. His mother and grandmother, they had a brothel. He was raised in a very dark atmosphere in which he was sexually abused by men, and it was bad. But Richard Pryor ended up escaping the south end of the ghettos of Peoria to bigger and better things. Of course, his life was always a rocky road. But he left a mark, man. He left a lot of marks on a lot of people, and hopefully not physical ones or, ones by crack pipes. Oh, just joking. Just joking. I love Richard. But, he bettered himself in some ways, I guess, a lot of ways. But his daughter, Tammy, is somebody that you never hear about. I have done countless research doing my deep dives on Richard Pryor over the years. There's nothing that I found to prove that she exists or existed. I don't know where she's at today, but her name was Tammy Pryor. Tamala. I believe it was Tamala Pryor, but we called her Tammy. So Tammy and I were good friends. We started going to this school, Rolling Acres, about halfway through the 6th grade. And that's when I met Tammy Pryor. So I went to 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, and eventually high school for a little bit. And Tammy was always someone that you didn't want to mess with. She looked exactly like Richard Pryor, by the way. Okay, and the story's got some weird curveballs. So when I met her, I was like, "You're Richard Pryor's daughter?" And she's just like, "Mm-hmm." She did not like him. They were never close. She held a massive grudge against him. I don't know if he took care of the family financially or not, or why she wasn't in his life. I don't know. Because when you Google Richard Pryor or do any research, you'll find out about like 6 or 7 kids he's got, including Rain Pryor, who's known. But Tammy Pryor is never mentioned. But she was absolutely Richard's daughter, right? And anytime anybody would bring Richard Pryor up, I'd always like, oh boy, they're going to have to hear Tammy because she never liked to talk about him at all. And then some weird stuff happened. All of a sudden, one day, my grandmother says to me, she worked at a nursing home, right? So did my mom. And one day they said, it's kind of funny. We're working with Richard Pryor's ex-wife. And I'm like, wait, the same one that's the mother of Tammy Pryor? And they came back and said, sure is. And they had a house in Rolling Acres that Richard Pryor had bought for the family. So they had a nice, cool little house. It was like a ranch-style house. And every once in a while, and I've talked about this in past videos here and there, you'd see Richard Pryor driving through and the buzz would be around. Richard's in town going to see his family or his ex-family. And sure enough, you'd see his car, a beautiful big car, driving. And a couple times I spotted Richard Pryor. And it was crazy, man, being a fan of him, knowing how huge he was in Hollywood with his acting career. And his stand-up comedy was just always the best. I used to do mushrooms and watch Richard Pryor DVDs with my wife. And we would crack up for hours watching that guy. Oh, let's not mention, or forget to mention, Sam Kinison, who also lived in Peoria, Illinois for a time. Can you believe that? Sam Kinison used to do cocaine with Rolly Keith. He was one of the newscasters in Peoria on regular TV. I don't know if he was on ABC, NBC, or CBS. I don't remember. But Rolly Keith was like a straight-laced guy with glasses and read the news, you know, suit and tie. Well, one time Sam Kinison actually did coke with him. Ha! And I had so many close brushes with Sam. But this video is about Richard Pryor's daughter, Tammy. So my grandmother and mother told me, we're working with her, you know, she's a really nice lady, and she would tell them stories about Richard. Oh, Richard's going to be in town this weekend for a couple days. And that's when us kids, us teenagers and, you know, grade schoolers would hang out in the neighborhood around Tammy's house to see if we could get a glimpse of the man himself. That we saw him driving, but we never saw him like walking in or out of the house. We tried, and Tammy just wouldn't budge as far as trying to talk to her about Richard. But let me tell you something. Tammy Pryor was just as funny as Richard. She had the genes, man. That lady would say stuff and we would just all die. And people would ask her, are you going to follow in the footsteps of your famous father? And she would just be like, no. She would shut down if you talked about Richard Pryor, right? And it was sad. Because, you know, when you come from a broken family, man, it never ends good. There's always some kind of resentment or some kind of anger, frustration, wounds that don't heal, apologies that aren't accepted, apologies that aren't given, things like that, man. I've come from a broken home myself, right? My mom was married 4 times in her life, once before my dad. So I had 2 stepfathers and a father in my life. And, you know, God bless her, man. In whatever form of God you believe in, I just believe in it in a more of a nature sort of way and more of a, let's not go there. God bless her either way, man. And I never step on people's toes with opinions. I just try to keep some stuff vague so we can talk about rock and roll and, well, comedy. So they worked with her at the nursing home, and they would witness all these things happening, like all the ghostly hauntings when people would die at the nursing home. We'd hear all kinds of stories about Richard, many that I've forgotten. But Tammy Pryor, man, she could have literally started a stand-up career just having the Pryor name. And I kept wondering, why doesn't she actually pursue that? Because even if they don't talk, there's plenty of famous kids of stars out there that aren't, you know, really, they don't talk to their families, but they still were able to use the family name or the brand to get somewhere. Anyway, if you happen to know where Tammy Pryor is today, please let me know. But I remember I had all these high school, what do you call them, yearbooks. And every time the yearbook would come out, you know, we'd look at them. All your friends would sign them at the end of the year. And Tammy Pryor always wrote some really funny stuff in my books. But all of my yearbooks burned in the fires in 2020 out here in Southern Oregon. It's a sad tale, but one I talk about often. What are you going to do? So I don't have the photos to show you of Tammy. All I can tell you is that I went to school with her. She was one funny chick, and she was also the kind of person you didn't want to mess with because kind of like Richard Pryor, she had a fucking temper, man. Whoo! She could really get down, and there was girls that would challenge Tammy Pryor, and they'd always regret it because she was a badass. She had like a mohawk, She had like an afro. She looked just like Richard Pryor to a freaking T, you guys. We'd go on field trips on the school bus, you know, to weird places, and Tammy Pryor would hold court, and she'd always be the funniest person on that bus, but in just a minute's notice, she could be pissy, real pissy. Wanted to say some more things about Richard Pryor. When he actually was filming the movie JoJo Dancer, remember that one about his life? They did auditions in Peoria, and I actually got in that line and signed the paperwork and signed up to have a small part in that movie. In my life, I've actually appeared and acted in about 5 different films that are indie films. Many of them are on DVD, some of them are on YouTube. But you can always ask me about those in the comments, and I will send you links if you want to watch those videos. There's one called Creeper, one called Covet Thy Neighbor, and there's others. Delusion Blues. And if you want those, like I say, leave a comment and I'll send you links, guys. But too bad Tammy Pryor's not in those videos. And I wish I had my old yearbooks to show you the pictures of Miss Pryor. But it was just a small world, man, having my parents, grandmother and mother working with her mom, having them live right up the road. It was like 4 blocks from my house. So always looking for Richard, man. But I'm sorry to say I did not get called to do my role in JoJo Dancer. Damn it. There was just so many people that came out because all the Peorians wanted to be in the movie because that's where Richard's from. And we were all fans of the guy and one of the funniest men to walk the freaking planet Earth. A good friend of mine, though, that I was in my bands for years, he was in the Vanes and the Renegades with me, Eric Ally. He actually did have a part in a Richard Pryor movie because he was from Peoria. And it was one of the films that was maybe Bustin' Loose. It was the movie with Cicely Tyson and Richard Pryor. And he's like on the school bus in that movie. You can actually see him in a scene. So my friend got to be in a Richard Pryor movie. I tried, but I failed. But I will say, when Richard Pryor was filming JoJo Dancer, they did parts of it in Peoria at the old house that he lived in, I believe, and other landmarks. And guess what? I went down there and got to watch him film that movie. That was cool to see Richard Pryor walking around a film set, you know, quiet on the set and things like that. Man, it was really exciting for us Peorians. Back then, we didn't have the telephones like now where you could take video and photos. So wish I would have got some of that stuff on photo. They kept people quite a distance away from the actual filming. But as a Peorian, we were able to walk down to High Street. How coincidental. High Street. That's where they filmed some of those scenes in that movie. We'd walk down to High Street, get high, and watch Richard on the set. You know, that was pretty damn cool. Of course, one person you didn't see hanging out on the set, Tammy Pryor. Now, why in the hell do I deep dive this girl and I can't find any proof she existed? It's beyond me. I don't know what happened to her after high school or if she even finished high school like I didn't. I did get a GED though. So I don't know, man. I'm hoping one Peorian will see this video and leave a comment and say, oh, I know Tammy, or I knew Tammy. I hope she's still around, man. I really do. And I hope she's in good health. Not much more to add, you guys. I mean, I'm sure if I sat here for a few hours and racked my brain, I could come up with more. But I just thought it was cool to talk a little about Richard Pryor, his daughter, Peoria, and a few of my weird, vague memories along the way. Thanks for being here, you guys. And I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up if you like the video, and leave a comment if you want, man. I do have a plasmatics video coming out soon, man, too. And I wanted to show you guys something, if I can find it real quickly in this little mess in front of me. Probably not, I'm guessing. I don't think it'll be here. But I got a copy of the new Ear of Corn fanzine in the mail from my good buddy, Sinner Stan. And unfortunately, I'm looking in this drawer right here to see if I have it handy. Oh, what do you know? Here it is. The latest issue of Ear of Corn fanzine out of Saginaw, Michigan. Dave Shaw, thank you so much for the great review. He actually reviewed the G.G. Allin and Bloody Mess 2 Sheets to the Wind CD, which is right here, man. The review's a good one, and I want to point to the right one. So right there, 2 Sheets to the Wind. 2 Sheets to the Wind. God damn, am I 4 sheets to the wind myself? No, I'm not. But this is the review we got of G.G. Allin and Bloody Mess featuring the Scabs. 4 sheets to the wind. I'm happy to say it's a really good review with a photo of the CD cover there. If you guys are ever interested in a copy of that CD, I do have copies available. My email is in the description area. Ear of Corn fanzine interviewed me back in like the 80s or 90s, and they interviewed me like a year or two ago as well, maybe last year. And they continue to plunder on, man, and doing the old school paper print fanzines, which I love. Used to be such a network of those things around back in the day, and I used to publish my own under the name Bloody Mess Publications. But yeah, thanks to Ear of Corn, thanks to Sinner Stan over in Springfield, Missouri for always keeping me on his mailing list and for being a great friend. Cheers, Sinner Stan. You are the man. He hates that. Stan the man. No, don't call him that. Anyway, here's my Ear of Corn fanzine with the review. And I hope you're a Richard Pryor fan. And if you are, tell me in the comments below, what's your favorite Richard Pryor movie, man? I think Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder is one of my favorites. I love Bustin' Loose, and there's a lot more, man. And if you watch some of those stand-ups where he was talking about his old days, they're just rip-roaring funny as hell. Rest in peace to the late great Richard Pryor, one of the best comedians ever. And Tammy Pryor, wherever you're at, man, I hope you're doing good. And I wish I had a few more anecdotes, but I just gonna keep it right there. I do my best, man. I've got a Plasmatics update coming for the Plasmatics fans soon. Going to talk about what me and Wes Beach, guitarist of the Plasmatics, have been up to in regards to the Plasmatics tribute soon. All right, man. Adios, guys. Talk to you soon. Keep it real. Rock and roll.